At the time my adventure began, I was approximately 29 million, and she was 23F. We met at a party and clicked immediately. We met through mutual friends, but it was not a setup. It turned out that we had several things in common. Among them was that she worked with my mother at that time. My mother had actually mentioned something to me about her in an attempt to set me up. I had a no-setup policy, instead preferring to meet someone on my own without having any expectations from friends or family. It was about this time that I was in the process of buying my first house. After we had dated for about a year, I asked her to move in with me. I knew then that I was going to marry her and was waiting for the perfect moment to propose. As luck would have it, I had a business convention in New York City towards the end of the summer, and I thought that would be a great time to ask her to marry me. We were engaged on a lovely evening at the top of the Empire State Building. We were married about a year later. Now, she had a full-time job that didn't pay terribly well, so she decided to get her master's degree and ended up spending the first 3 of our anniversaries overseas in an immersive graduate program that would allow her to get her degree without missing any work. She was a teacher, obviously. I looked at it as a great opportunity to ease into married life. I was always very active in the summer with a serious passion for golf. The golf season where I live is not very long, usually about 5 months long, so I took every opportunity to play while she was gone. When I got home from golf in the evening, we would talk on the phone. It was evening for me and morning for her, but we still spoke at least every couple of days. During one of our calls in her 3rd and final year of grad school, she mentioned that we needed to talk when she got back home. I was immediately apprehensive and asked her if anything was wrong or if there was something I needed to know about. Of course, I instantly thought she might have strayed, and I asked if our talk had anything to do with another guy. She denied this and said that she missed talking to me and just wanted to spend some time with me alone, so we could catch up on everything she had missed the past summer. Now I trusted her completely and took her at her word that there was no other guy, so I filed it in the back of my mind, not forgotten, but on a back burner, so to speak. When she got home, it was just like she said. We spent hours talking and making love to make up for lost time. At last, her overseas studies were over, and we could begin thinking about starting a family. We were both very excited at the prospect of adding children to our family and building memories we could cherish forever. Fast forward about 15 years. By then we had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. During this time, we also dealt with health problems that had begun to plague her. After a couple of years, she was diagnosed with epilepsy and required surgery to remove the affected area of her brain. It was a stressful time, the kids were young, and I was working a lot as well as trying to reassure her that everything was going to be fine. Ultimately, the surgery went extremely well. After several months of recuperating, she was finally able to drive again and was excited to reconnect with friends. She started frequenting a friend's house parties with her sisters. She nearly always asked me to go along, but frankly, I wasn't always up for it. Going to the party meant getting home late and then having to take our babysitter home, which meant I wasn't in bed until about half an hour after her. When I did go, I always had a great time and reconnected with a friend in a similar field to mine. We talked about work, sports, and drank a lot of beer. One weekend, she was getting ready to go over to the friend's house, and I noticed she was wearing a new bra and panties. I asked her what was so special about that evening, and she said that she was tired of wearing old underwear and wanted something nice to wear when she went out. It made perfect sense. She had dealt with a major health scare and wanted to enjoy time with friends and feel pretty again. I got it. It made perfect sense. She then asked if I was going to the party, and I admitted that it sounded like fun and that it would be great to spend some time with her more, or less, alone with her, and not having to attend to our kids' constant needs. She then starts in about me not having to go if I didn't want to. that the party was going to be smaller, with just a few girls hanging out drinking and talking. I agreed to stay home with the kids and let her have time with her friends. By 2 a.m. she had still not returned home, and I began to get worried. She wasn't answering her phone, and I feared that she might have been pulled over after drinking too much. So I jumped in my car and started to drive over to her friend's house to find out what was going on. As I headed down the street, she passed me in her car, so I turned around and followed her back home. When I got inside, I asked her what the hell was going on, and she said her phone was dead and she had lost track of time. I was angry with her. I told her it was irresponsible of her to be away from home that late when we had young children. What if something had happened to one of them, or me, or her? She said I was overreacting and that we should just go to bed. I was still angry the next morning, but I figured it was just an honest mistake, so I just let life go on. Several weeks later, we were in bed during a weeknight. I had to work the next morning and I was ready for sleep. For those of you with multiple kids, you understand how tired I was after a long day of work and managing the kids when I got home. She was constantly doing school work that she brought home, so it was largely up to me to take care of them. One night she was on her phone texting a friend, I assumed. She was giggling from time to time, and I asked her what was so funny. She said it was nothing, but I was curious and asked to see her phone. She said it was none of my business, closed her phone, and turned off the light. Alarm bells finally started going off in my brain, and I asked her if she was having an affair, to which she laughed and said of course not. Because I trusted her so much, I dropped it, but still felt uneasy. A couple of months later, we took a trip to Texas. Up to that time, she was still going to parties with her friends, so it wasn't like anything had dramatically changed. We had a great time with the kids, but it was nice to get back home. Once we got settled in and unpacked, started laundry, etc., I went downstairs to my man cave and watched a little TV while the laundry went through the washer and dryer. She came downstairs and said we needed to talk. I was a little annoyed because we had just spent the last 5 days together and had plenty off chances to talk alone. I know she could see I was annoyed, and then she dropped the bomb. She admitted she was having an affair. It took me 2 guesses to figure out who her AP was. It was my old friend from the parties she was constantly going to without me. It was so humiliating. I knew the guy well enough to know he was bragging about it with his coworkers and friends, which made me the cuckold. I asked her to leave the house, but she said the house was just as much hers as it was mine, so she would not leave. I decided to leave, but she begged me not to go because she didn't want the kids knowing something was wrong. I asked her if there had been any other APs, and she responded that she had kissed a guy during one of her graduate summers overseas. Now I might be dumb, but I'm not stupid. She was the kind of woman who would not admit to cheating so long ago when we were first married. At that time, she was a bit of a drinker who would let her wild side show after a few glasses of wine. So it wasn't a stretch to assume kissing meant sex. I asked if she was planning on moving in with her AP. Once I started doing the math and putting all the subtle clues together, I figured her affair had been going on for at least 6 months and likely more. She told me that once she told him that she admitted to the affair, he broke up with her, and a tear streamed down her face. Whether it was because of shame or the fact he was using her does not matter now. So now I'm in a total spiral, and I decided to leave the house. I asked her how she could love me and be so willing to break her vows. She responded with the tried and true, "I don't know if I ever really loved you," a true dagger to the heart. I left my home, and soon after my marriage, I bought a house a couple of miles from my home so I could stay close to the kids. I spent most of the next couple of years avoiding her at all costs, even though I had to co-parent and had no way of removing all contact with her. Then came COVID. I got a terrible case and spent a month at home feeling like I was going to die most of the time. I recovered, but I dealt with the COVID aftermath for a long time. I was constantly fatigued and had little energy to do much but sleep when I wasn't at work. Then I got cancer. It was caught early, but I still required surgery, chemo, and radiation therapy. I've recovered and lost a lot of weight that needed to be lost. I've got to admit that I haven't felt this good in a long, long time. During my illnesses, she would bring soup or whatever I was capable of eating. Secretly, I resented her taking care of me so much. I figured that it was her way of trying to atone for the absolute hell I went through after finding out about her affairs. I was seriously suicidal for quite a time, and I still get depressed enough that it still comes to mind every so often, even 10 years later. Yes, I've been single for the last 9 years and on my own for the last 10. My life is better now. I've got good friends who I can golf and drink beer with. I've got a great dog who sleeps in my bed almost every night. When one of my kids is home from college, my dog, will sleep with him. I guess I'm always second fiddle, lol. I have lost the future that I thought I would have, growing old with my wife, spending more time with the kids and enjoying my retirement. That's mostly vapor now. I still see the kids, but my finances have not recovered, and retirement seems like a fantasy now. Not for her, of course. She got the house and child support, leaving me to struggle with making ends meet every single month. I have also lost all trust in women and decided that I will never again be in any kind of serious relationship with a woman. The price is too steep to consider, and I will never be able to trust a woman again. I would like to ask for opinions here, especially from women. When we had been married for about 5 years, we were pregnant with our first child. I worked at a new car dealership as a sales manager. My general manager was a subtle combination of nerd and asshole. On top of that, he was a terrible GM. One of his brilliant ideas was to have a midnight sale. The entire sales staff was required to work from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., which made for a 16-hour day. Towards the end of the day, the guy who was our finance manager asked me for a favor. He asked if he could use my credit card to reserve a motel room, so he didn't have to drive an hour and a half to his home. He was married at that time, and he was also having an affair with his assistant. His credit was absolutely terrible. I personally watched one of cars get repossessed, so it didn't surprise me he couldn't get a credit card. I finally agreed and let him reserve the room. Fast forward a month when the credit card statement came in the mail. My wife was completely certain I had an affair with one of the office girls and was crimson red with anger. One of those girls asked me to get a room once. I told her I was married and wouldn't do that to my wife. She was my best friend. The woman rolled her eyes like she had asked an idiot to spend some quality time with her. Anyway, I tried to reassure her it was completely innocent and that I had done a favor for a friend. I even went so far as to have the guy call her to explain what happened. She never believed it. She chewed on that bone for years and even used it to justify her affair. I told her to do the math. I was off at midnight and drove an hour home and went to bed. I didn't have time to have an affair. So, ladies and gents that feel like responding, what is your opinion? In hindsight, I made an innocent mistake. Still, I had always been faithful to her. I'm a fairly pragmatic kind of guy. I told her, why on earth would I want 2 women when one was all I could handle? I meant it when I said it. I will never understand why people cheat. 90% will probably get caught or admit to cheating. The AP would eventually want a side commitment, which would be like having a second wife. No thanks, I'm very risk adverse. I've been longing to spill out this story that has weighed heavily on my shoulders for some time now. Though it's been 7 years, and despite moving on and my life being better than ever, there are times when the memories resurface. I find myself getting lost in these Reddit cheating stories, a form of pain shopping. It's an unhealthy indulgence. I believe it springs from the fact that I've never had therapy or any form of closure on the entire situation. Perhaps this could be my therapy or closure. So here we go. After a 6-year relationship, my ex-girlfriend ended things. I had been suspecting infidelity for months based on minimal evidence. I never held any accusations against her, as her supposed dishonesty was only circumstantial. I sensed something was off when she would claim to be one place on nights out, but was somewhere else entirely, was overly protective of her phone, and our romance was stagnating. Amid an inconsequential disagreement, I can't even recall what it was about, I suggested we break up, hoping to gauge her true feelings. Not an ideal tactic, but all I wanted was honesty. I was shocked when her response appeared to be one of relief, agreeing that separation was best. Since we were both drunk, I proposed we go home and talk things out in depth. Initially, she had been inclined to stay out longer and enjoy herself, a response that caught me off guard considering our relationship of 6 years had just ended, yet she craved a shot of liquor. We headed home and discussed the situation all night. In that time, I tried to see if she would admit to seeing someone else, but she wouldn't budge. I began wondering if my paranoia had led me to misconstrue the dying embers of our relationship as a sign of her unfaithfulness. She made some hard-hitting comments that night. Oddly, I don't think she intended to be hurtful. Entering a new phase of my life where I was no longer the softy hippie lefty, she stated that my new job had transformed me. It was true, I had changed. Although I still possessed socialist values, I was no longer the vegetarian who immersed himself in Billy Bragg's music and hugged trees. Then, she dealt the final blow. Through her tears, she confessed, "You'll be devastated and I'll just move on." I was speechless. It was such an odd statement to make. Fast forward to our living situation post-breakup. We had only recently bought a house together, and were now living in a perpetually gloomy atmosphere. It was during this time that more signs of her alleged affair with one of my closest friends, who will hereby be referred to as POS for the purpose of this story, began to appear. One Saturday, she joined a gathering of my friends. I wasn't in the mood and decided not to attend. As the clock struck midnight, I called one of our friends to ask about the evening and how she was faring. They informed me that she and POS had left together in a taxi, which wasn't unusual since he lived near us. It was convenient for her to be dropped off en route. However, after 2 hours of waiting and worrying, I finally spotted her rounding the corner and heading towards the house. She claimed to have ridden home with POS when questioned of her whereabouts, offering no explanation as to why she had been walking instead of being dropped off directly home. When I pointed out that she had left the gathering hours ago, she dismissively stated she didn't want to talk about it and went to bed. Being unable to sleep that night due to the rising suspicion, I took her phone while she was asleep, intending to go through her messages. She must have been in a light sleep despite her drunken state, and woke up asking what I was doing. I locked myself in the bathroom and started looking through messages while she banged on the bathroom door screaming for her phone back. I felt like an abused wife hiding from a drunk husband. I went through the messages between her and POS that went back to September. Nothing incriminating, just chit-chat, often past the time I had gone to sleep. This was bizarre to me. Yes, we were in the same friend group, but they weren't close friends. She had mentioned not liking him as a person. This made sense to me. He was a real red pillar. He had a good sense of humor and was enjoyable to hang around when watching sports or on a night out. But he sounded like a bigot when it came to discussing political issues. He had transformed into a woman hater after his only ever girlfriend broke his heart years ago. This description of him seems a bit harsh. He was reliable. He had helped us a lot when we moved into our new house. He was a builder and assisted with some problems we had inherited with the house. What stood out to me was that a lot of the messages didn't make sense, as if some parts had been deleted. Ultimately, I didn't find any concrete evidence. I unlocked the door and returned her phone. She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. We had broken up, and I was left wondering whether she had started seeing POS before we broke up. Was this even important? Adding to the confusion, we continued sharing a bed during this time, which seems so strange in retrospect. We had a group trip to Barcelona vacation, planned in advance before everything happened. Despite everything that was going on, I decided to go along with 12 others. I was curious to see how she and POS interacted with each other. Surprisingly, I ended up having a good time and didn't see any sparks flying between them. I found myself having deep conversations with an old friend named Chelsea, not her real name, who had moved to London. We had always cared for each other, but the timing had never been right. I spent most nights at her hotel room, just laughing and joking together, nothing more. There was a significant disagreement between me and POS on the last night. He asked me to take our highly inebriated friend back to the hotel, spoiling everyone's fun. I suggested he do it if he was concerned. This led to a brawl ignited by my suspicion, although I still hadn't confronted him about it. But we decided to keep our distance, and that's how the night ended for me. Back home, Claire and her boyfriend offered me a ride from the airport, saving me from a bus and train ride. On the way, they asked how the flight was, and I admitted it was awkward but fine. Claire then casually mentioned that my ex and POS had spent the last night together, news unknown to me. Everyone assumed I knew already. This revelation set off a 6-month period of chaos, during which they insisted nothing was happening between them while trying to rebuild their reputations with our mutual friends. There were many developments during this time. 1. My ex moved out. 2. My mother, who had also been cheated on by my father, found my ex's car parked outside POS's house. 3. Another woman claimed POS had hit on her throughout her relationship. 4. My ex and I tried to plan our interactions at upcoming social events, which ended in a confrontation and a series of unfounded threats on my part. 5. Rumors circulated about me being abusive. Apparently, they originated from POS, but luckily, my ex didn't back his story. 6. POS and I had a heated argument, resulting in more threats from me. 7. The police warned me about acting on my threats, stressing that it could land me in jail. Despite the trauma, the officers were sympathetic and encouraged me not to ruin my life over the issue. The entire situation led to disputes, sides being taken, and alliances forming. Some believed I was overly paranoid, while others sided with me and severed ties with POS and my ex. One friend confided in me about something he noticed at a birthday party we both attended. After I left feeling unwell due to too much to drink, he noticed X and POS dancing inappropriately together. This occurred in October, but he decided not to share this with me earlier, fearing it might cause unnecessary tension. Eventually, the culprits confessed to Tim, whom they thought was a loyalist, not his real name, claiming their relationship began only after my breakup with them. However, it seemed to have started immediately after that. Tim was deeply regretful that he initially believed their cover-up. Given the evidence I had already provided, along with their confession after months of denial, it was clear that they had been unfaithfully involved months prior. Though the whole truth may never fully emerge, the speculation and uncertainty still brought me pain. Despite this, things gradually improved. Our group of friends stopped associating with them, they moved a little further away, and stopped frequenting our favorite bars and restaurants. The situation gradually got better, even though there were occasional gloomy days. Now, 7 years since the incident, which lasted longer than my relationship with them, I have moved on. I did end up having a long causal relationship with Chelsea, and it was great. Just what we both needed at the time, but wasn't meant to be. It was like long distance, best friends with benefits. I've had 2 serious relationships since then. One was a medium-term relationship that ended, but now I am in a fantastic long-term relationship with a woman I adore. I live with her, envisioning her as my future wife. What about X and AP, you ask? Well, since all ties with them have been severed, I only hear about them once in a blue moon. According to what I've heard, they're doing amazingly well. They're still together and now even have a baby, one happy family. Good for them, right? I was hoping that karma would catch up with them, but it seems like I shouldn't bank on that. I guess it doesn't really exist. That being said, the incident occasionally crosses my mind, drawing me back into the darkness. I hope sharing this will help me find closure. So here is a tip: don't cheat and don't betray friends. Note: I had chat reword this for me as I'm not a great writer, so excuse any robotic phrasing.